Hello, people, welcome back. So, here we are with less than 2 weeks to go, I think, before the F1 22 game releases. And as promised, I'm finishing up. Oops, excuse me there. I'm finishing up the hot laps that I have remaining for this game. So, third to last, it's gonna be Russia, where we are today. Next one is going to be Japan, one of my favorite tracks as well. Very technical this year, but I like it. And the finale is going to be China, where coincidentally I'm also having my league race finale over there. Updates about the league race: constructors has been sealed, so we finally won it. We started last, and we made it up to P2, and insane strategy. I'll probably post up highlights on that very soon if I get the time to edit the highlights, of course. But here we are. Either way, we are back in Russia. Not a track where a lot of people really like it, but it's still a nice race track to race on in the game. At least overtaking is kind of okay. There are two massive long straights, but everywhere else is just high speed corners and very technical corners where you need to follow quite a lot around the lap. So you'll normally see something like a 10-7 setup around this track in time trial. In time trial it's okay anyway, because there's no tire wear. Even in the real race you can run 10-7. You can be pretty safe throughout the whole race, because the mediums do not incur any tire wear or tire degradation, if I may say it. So I prefer to run it at 11.8, slightly higher aero, just because it gives you better initial pace as well, and looks after your tires early on pretty good. And as you go on into the race, you'll have less tire wear, so that means your raw pace is naturally going to be higher as well. With higher downforce, it gives you also more confidence to put down the power, turn in the car, throw in the car a bit more aggressively. Perhaps you want to take some alternate lines before you line up for the overtake on the pit straight or the back straight. It's going to be helpful to have that extra arrow. DRS, ERS, and slipstream, a combination that is pretty deadly around here, makes it pretty easy to overtake. So you can get away with running high wings around here, just so you can follow much closer throughout the lap. Transmission, again pretty high on the off throttle, 57. And the higher you go, it keeps the rear more in check, more in balance, and also reduces the rear from sliding too much. So when you have your rear sliding too much, you're gonna start incurring more tire temperature and also tire wear with it, and also cause some instability in your car in mid corner usually. So I run it at 57, just nice on this track, although they are quite a bit of Mickey Mousey sections, but overall you can see with the rest of the setup you can pretty much make up the time with the slower speed corners as well. 100% on the on throttle just gives you good initial traction out of the corners, pretty useful in qualifying. In the race you can always drop it down to 95, 90, 85, 80, whatever you feel like it. If you feel like you need more oomph out of the corner, definitely kick it up, maybe 5%. You can only go up by 5% at a time, so 5%, maybe up to 95 or up to 100. Or perhaps if your tires are starting to wear out, and the moment you put down your traction, put on your throttle, and you feel that the traction is breaking, you slide a little bit, you can definitely reduce the on throttle just slightly, and that should keep you fine in the race. And let's go on to the next one: suspension geometry. The usual, there's no change to this. Right, left, 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 the way you want to go about it in pretty much every track, I would say that will be useful. And suspension next. So 1-1 suspension, again I like to run my rear suspension very soft, just so it gives me the best traction out of corners and also best handling over the curbs. It also kind of helps when you're going through high speed corners, you don't have to worry if the car just touches a little bit of the curb, or you mount the curb a little aggressively, it will not kick out the car. Whereas if you have a higher suspension setup, that's probably going to affect you on the curbs or on traction out of corners as well, if you don't have high wings, high rear wing to compensate for that. And again, this will all change in F1 22, very soon, because now with these new ground effect cars, you will definitely have to run stiffer suspensions, because that will enhance the underbody downforce that is generated through the venturi tunnels. So I don't know what's coming just yet. 2 weeks to go. Once the game is out, we'll get with the experiments as well. In the meantime, if you want to know how to learn how to make setups for F121, just check on the top right or in the descriptions if I remember to put it. As always, I forget. But yeah, you will notice, there are going to be some changes pretty soon to F122 in terms of the setup. Now, back to this. Rear anti-roll bar, I like it pretty high here because it gives you the rotation that you need. I always start off with 1.6 on the anti-roll bars. It's also again a very good preset, a very good baseline to run for all tracks. You'll be just fine if you run this, perhaps a bit of understeer here and there, but generally if you're just jumping in without practice, you rather have a car that is slightly understeery than a car that is oversteery and you can't handle it. Alright, so you can go with this, but again I increased it one at a time to see how the rear reacts, how the car feels. So for me 8 is just nice. I tried 9. It went a little too oversteer in the high speed corners because I want to throw the car in, get the time, but at the same time it starts to move too much with 9. If you can handle that, sure, go for it, give it a try. One thing I would definitely suggest, if you want to go with even higher anti-roll bar, you can probably increase the front ride height just to balance things out. Otherwise, stick to 1.8, 1.7, 1.6. Maybe it's just nice for you as well. Ride height on the front, it's again on the minimum ride height on the front gives you best initial turning as well. It can give you a little bit of trouble on the exit if your rake is too high, for example like this. 1.7 is pretty high rake, so, and you have a very aggressive roll bar setup or suspension setup, so that can cause you a bit of oversteer on exit unless you're very smooth with your inputs, you're smooth with your throttle, with your steering and whatnot. You can pretty much negate that, so I prefer to run it that way. 7 on the rear right hand again gives you good amount of ground clearance and a good amount of clearance to really stamp the throttle on exits, so you don't really spin out the car under heavy acceleration or high speed acceleration. Slow or high speed, either way, you feel pretty stable on acceleration on exits. So you keep it like this, and let's go on the brakes. Pretty usual, the same, nothing changed here. 100% under pressure, 50% in the brake bias. Just gives you the best rotation, best stopping power, and turns the car in just nicely around here. There aren't many heavy braking zones like requires you to completely stop to like first gear or second gear even. So running at 50% throughout the lap helps a lot. If you're incurring a lot of rear tire wear for some reason in this with the setup, or perhaps just through your driving alone, so you can always increase the brake bias mid-race to 51, 52. So this will look after the rear tires and also shift the balance slightly forward in case your car is, well, oversteering for some reason. This can actually help. One click just makes the difference in the world. Tire pressures, again, it's preferential. I like to run it rear maximum just because that gives you the best stability, or throughout the lap, slow speed, high speed, it keeps the car very stable with high pressures. And also higher pressures means lower tire wear, which is pretty good if you want to go very long with your stint. You want to do an overcut, or perhaps if you're doing an undercut onto the mediums and you want to take the mediums all the way till the end of the race, this will be a good way to go about it. Same for the fronts. You can always, oops, just a second. Alright, front tire pressures, again, you can adjust it according to your preference. I like to run it high as well, just enough to balance out the wear between the front and the rears. Again, it is the same as the rear. When you run higher pressure, your fronts are going to be more stable and reduces the tire wear. So Russia is not really a track where tire wear is a concern, so you can always run perhaps slightly lower pressures as well if you need more grip around the lap, around the corners. So that's pretty good. But since predominantly Russia is a high-speed track, having high pressure also helps to give you the responsiveness you need. If you feel your fronts are wearing out perhaps too much, you can definitely increase the pressure 1 or 2 clicks so that they wear out less. Now if your fronts are wearing out too slow, perhaps your rears are wearing out too much, right? And you want to make sure your fronts are wearing out a little bit more to balance it out, you can reduce the tire pressures, and that will solve your problems in the world. So yeah, that's about it. And let's quickly recap the changes you can make for a qualifying session and a wet session here. So qualifying session, again, since we're already on maximum 11 wings, you can't go any higher. F122, I can't wait for it. You can just go nuts with the wings, and it'll be interesting to see if you can really go for a fully race based setup, and then just with the wings adjustment in the qualifying, you can set a very competitive lap. Pretty sure we can do that. Now back to this though, if it's qualifying, keep it the same. You're not going to be encountering any issues. Race start as well, keep it at 10, keep it at 11, sorry, keep it at 11, and then in your second stint you can drop it down to 10 or even 9, so that the car balance, as you know, as the tires wear down, fuel gets lighter, your car tends to be more pointy. So to take off the pointiness, bring back the balance to the car, you can drop down the front wing. Qualifying, either way, keep it the same. In the wets, I'd say definitely just go with a maximum rear wing as much as you can. So go with a 9 rear wing or even 10 rear wing, either way will work. If it's heavy rain though, it's a good shot to go for maximum rear wing again. This will give you a lot of understeer naturally, because there's no more front wing left for you to adjust. But you can always adjust the transmission, which I'll come to next. So transmission, if you are in qualifying, I'll say keep it at 57 for the off throttle, just so you get the balance in the car. In the rain, you want to reduce it by 1%, so that it allows the rear to rotate more and brake, and kind of get the car rotated more easily in the wets. Because the thing is, in the wets, it's pretty difficult to lock up the rear. It's more of the front tires that lock up more, so you can get away with running lower off throttle. 55 is the lowest you would want to go. If you have ABS on, just go nuts with 50%. Sometimes it works out. If not, stick to 55. Either way will be nice for you. On throttle, keep it at 100% for start of the race. Maybe in qualifying, definitely 100%. In the rain, you can drop it to 90 or 80 even, and you can get away with that. Again, personal preference. Suspension geometry, no changes to that regardless of the conditions. Suspension, I would say, if you're going to increase your wings for the wets, then keep the suspension the same. Only increase the ride height by 1, that's all. That should give you all the nice handling in the rain as well. If you are not gonna touch the aero at all for the wets, then definitely do something like this: -1 on the roll bar, +1 on the front ride height. This will induce a little bit of understeer into the car to make sure it's more drivable in the wets. Unless you're a banzai and you can handle the car, go for it. Brakes, keep it the same. Tire pressures, you can actually run maximum if it's going to be full wet. But again, remember, the higher pressures you have on the front, it's going to make the front more responsive. So you do not want the front to be too pointy. If it's too pointy, drop it down a click or two, and you should be feeling just nice as you enter the corner and exit it as well. So yeah, there you go. Final setup: 11.8 on the wings, 157 on the transmission, right left geometry, 1.1 suspension, 1.8 roll bars, 1.7 on the right height, 150 standard brake setup, tire pressures 23.8 on the front, maximum on the rear. And that should be it. Russia is done. Now we will be heading to we'll be heading to Japan, and once Japan is done, we'll be heading to China. And just as the weekend arrives, we will be in our penultimate race in the league, so just have to pretty much attend the race and finish 1 or 2 positions behind my teammate, and the championship will be secured for me. I'll be starting last, just to do some funky challenges, and perhaps I don't know, maybe a 3-stop challenge kind of thing in Abu Dhabi. That might work out. I'd rather have 3-stop challenge than no soft tires challenge, which I did in Jeddah, which somehow worked out. And yeah, see y'all very very soon. F122 is coming. Stay tuned and subscribe for that. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care, everyone. Stay safe and goodbye.